Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Should You Play, where I'm going to show you some spoiler-free gameplay and give you my thoughts after playing new games for a few hours, as well as highlighting and checking out at least one of the PlayStation Plus games for each month. In this video, I'm playing one of the November 2024 PlayStation Plus games, Death Note Killer Within, the brand new online social deduction game based on the Death Note anime and manga series. I've been a big fan of the Death Note anime for a long time, and when I heard that a Death Note game had been announced, I struggled to figure out what kind of game they could realistically make. At first I thought it might be a visual novel style game, or maybe even something along the lines of a Telltale game, but here we are with a social deduction game, and I'll be honest, the game is fun, but it has a lot of functionality issues, so let's talk about it. For those who might not be aware, the premise of Death Note follows Light Yagami, a Japanese high school student, who finds a notebook called the Death Note and is able to use it to remotely kill anyone he pleases, assuming he knows their name and face. Light begins using the Death Note to kill criminals, primarily with heart attacks, sparking a global manhunt as investigators, led by the detective L, try to catch the killer that the world has dubbed Kira. Essentially, the series is an intellectual game of cat and mouse between Kira and L. At its core, Death Note Killer Within operates within a similar vein as Among Us. The killers need to kill to win, and the rest need to catch them. Players are divided into 4 roles: investigators, L, Kira's followers, and Kira. The investigators' jobs are to work together to collect clues and to expose Kira and their followers. If you're playing as L, you'll act as their leader, using specialized abilities to support and guide the investigators. Meanwhile, if you're playing as one of Kira's followers, you can covertly sabotage the investigators and influence events in Kira's favor. And if you're lucky enough to play as Kira, your goal is to stay out of sight while taking out L and the investigators. Now, there's some good and some bad here. The good is that the variety of roles allows for more interesting gameplay than in other similar games. Investigators can mark names in their journal so that, even if they're killed by Kira, other investigators can pick up their notes to see who they consider to be suspicious before their death. On top of that, Kira can pass the Death Note to their followers, so even if someone catches Kira killing and has them arrested, they might not have the Death Note on them anymore and will essentially be considered innocent. One of the best things is that you can play with an in-game voice chat system though, a feature that I thought was sorely lacking in Among Us. And the reason I believe this is such an important feature in a game like this is because you can actually discuss who you think Kira is as a group, rather than just typing in who you think it is and then letting mob mentality take over every single time a vote comes up. The bad, because of the added elements, gameplay is a lot slower, with my average game lasting about 20 minutes and my longest game going to about 40. This tracks with the nature of Death Note itself, since most of the story could easily be considered a slow burn, but in a game genre such as this, the longer matches can just feel tedious rather than fun, especially since if you're an investigator or one of Kira's followers, once you're dead or captured, you're just stuck watching everyone else play and argue without being able to do anything yourself. On the visuals, Death Note Killer Within leans into the style of the finger puppets that Nier uses in the second half of the anime, and I'm torn on if it was the right choice or not. On one hand, it's a lot more playful and probably a hell of a lot easier to design a game around, but the anime and manga are both very mature looking and obviously revolve around heavy themes, so by using the finger puppets and chibi models, the game can feel a bit more toy-like than dark and serious. As for the graphics themselves, they're mostly fine. You don't see a ton of objects up close, so the character models and world elements aren't super detailed, and they don't really need to be either, but they definitely suffer in other places. Most glaringly obvious, and surprisingly, in the customization menu where the characters appear incredibly low quality, arguably the one screen where your avatar should look best while you're customizing their appearance. The biggest and most notable issue by far right now is the matchmaking though. Unlike in most other online games, hosts need to manually start matches, which means if your host isn't paying attention or goes AFK, you're just stuck waiting indefinitely. And if you're unlucky enough to run into a loading screen bug when leaving, you'll be stuck looking at a black screen for, at least in my case, up to 5 minutes before you get back to the main menu. The issue I'm seeing complained about most, though, is that if any player leaves the match, disconnects, or loses connection to the server, everyone is kicked from the game and sent back to the lobby. And no experience is rewarded if that happens, and it happens a lot. In total, I joined about 40 sessions, and of those 40, only 11 of them actually got me into matches, and only 6 of those played all the way through without someone leaving. It's so bad right now that getting to play a full match feels like a miracle, and every time I got kicked back to the lobby, the game was greeted with a symphony of groans from the other players in my group. I think that at the very least, the game should only fully end if L or Kira leave, and even then, the other players should at least get a partial reward since the matches can go on for quite a while. Of course, on top of all that, we can't escape the microtransactions. If you really want to, there are some avatars that you can buy with real-world money, if you don't feel like the free rewards from leveling up are enough. And if you're considering purchasing the battle passes, they currently cost more than the base game itself when bought together. And to me, that feels far too aggressive for a game that still seems to be figuring out basic matchmaking issues. Look, I wanted to love Death Note Killer Within more than I did. There's a ton of potential here for it to become a more complex and involved version of Among Us. But unfortunately, the game is currently a frustratingly mixed bag plagued by bugs, pacing issues, and a community that's constantly dropping out of matches before they finish and ruining it for everyone else. The game is fun, if you're able to finish a full match that is, and it could very well evolve into something special with some fixes and refinements, but as it currently plays, I'm hesitant to recommend it to those who don't already have access to it through PlayStation Plus for free, or to those who may not have a dedicated group of friends to play with. As always though, this is just my opinion. If you're still investigating who Kira could be, or if you've already caught them and their followers, let me know in the comments what you thought of Death Note Killer Within. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
見てください。協力してください。